Is it safe to be a woman on the internet?
Like, I get this interview. We didn't plan this out, apparently. I'm gonna defer.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm curious of your perspective from the outside, but so I have to have like a Twitter profile for my work, right? Like the market people want you to have like a personal brand where you're like fun and cool, but know about politics. And the thing that I've noticed is that, first of all, because I write about politics, my Twitter audience is like 65% male. And there are oftentimes these men who develop a really intense emotional relationship with me, whether they like me or hate me, that is like inexplicable. So if they get mad at me, for example, like I might never respond and they'll send me 10 tweets in a row going through all the stages of grief, like rage, denial. Suddenly they're like bargaining with me. Like I'm reading these tweets, they're so bizarre. It's like, look, if you just do this one thing, I'll stop harassing you. Just please, come on. And it's like, it's so strange. So like one of the ways like social media has changed how we interact is that it feels like we have a real relationship with someone because we can see their face, even though we've never talked to them. But yeah, so being a woman on the internet, it's often a bummer. But it's not horrible. It's not as bad as some people say, but it's really weird.
Yeah. Actually, no. Hashtag. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I think we're starting to hear this conversation more. The big tech companies and social networks, they're starting to have these conversations. Now. And Twitter kind of made a push for it seemed like a bit, and then the guy left that was making the push, and I haven't heard anything since. Was that Dick Costello? But yeah, there's just very few tools out there to protect against being harassed. And so when the question is it safe to be a woman, not only are women treated differently, this gets back again to social vulnerability. This is, when you're a sociologist talking about the internet, you talk about social vulnerability. That's the sociological perspective. I don't think that perspective is in much of the tech culture, given its demographics, people that look like me. And that's, I think that, that's just a real problem, is that, you see this all the time. Somebody will make a new network and it doesn't even have a block feature or a mute button. It's like, well, okay, well, of course men made that network, right? Yeah. That would not be a mistake. If you had a diverse team, that would not be a mistake you would make. I think Elle is the one I remember. And, it was like they launched out a block button. It's like, oh, who made this? Oh, it was 7 guys. Like, yeah. That's not surprising. It's not to say those are like bad dudes or like to raise my hand and say like, I'm a better, no. It's just, that's just from a perspective of making a product that isn't awful for your users, a terrible, terrible idea. So I think we need to build in these, obviously build in a lot of functionality on being able to block, being able to report, and the flagging systems are just complicated to no end because it takes a lot of people. If you have 1 billion users, actually dealing with how people are flagging and blocking, because of really bad people use those flagging and blocking systems too to troll, right? To make those systems unusable so that they can then game them for harassing people.
Yeah, I think police departments also don't understand tech very well. So a close friend lives in a small town, and there's a woman there who is mentally ill that everyone in the neighborhood calls Crazy Becky. It's definitely a failure of our healthcare system. But what happens with Crazy Becky is she'll go in a fit. Well, she'll make harassing phone calls, like hundreds and hundreds of phone calls a day to someone, and then she gets sent off to jail. But like, if I get hundreds and hundreds of tweets from someone, like, so what? Like, no one's gonna do anything. Like, it's absolutely taboo to send harassing phone calls to someone, but like, someone could send me hundreds of like racist emails a day and like no one will do anything.
You call in a bomb threat, this place gets emptied. You tweet a bomb threat, they're like, it's just Twitter.
Right.
And I think that's been a real issue. Is if you go to some authority and say, look what's happening on the internet, they go, oh, that's just the internet, as if the internet isn't real. And that's an understanding we need to lose, that the internet is somehow not real. That said, the more depressing and I think more correct answer to this is, the idea of, oh, we just need to get the cops more involved is probably not going to be the answer that we want. And the idea of, oh, we just need these networks to police everybody more. Well, I mean, these aren't people that are elected or appointed in any way, right? These are business people. Do we want them organizing and policing how we interact? You know, what counts, what you can say and what you can't say. Like, Mark Zuckerberg gets to decide whether a breastfeeding photo is allowed or not. Like, we don't, you know, we're kind of in the situation where we've handed way too much power to way too few people, and we're in this mess. And it's like, okay, well, like, yeah, do we need to be calling the cops all the time and bringing cops involved? Do we want these business people to be making these decisions? So like the depressing answer is like, oh no, we need to fix culture, fix the culture that makes women more vulnerable, and that's not the easy solution anybody wants when they talk about these issues. They want the tech, like, oh, we just need the right code and sexism will go away.
Right, yeah.
Sexism isn't an engineering problem, it's a social problem. Right?
Yeah, writing about politics has been, it's like what you get back is a really interesting x-ray of the culture, right? So I'm a woman, so what they email me is always blowjob jokes. Like, there's never any variety. It's always the same. It's always Monica Lewinsky. My friend is Filipino. His last name sounds like it could be Muslim or it could be Hispanic, and people will write to him and be like, I can tell by your name you're a minority. Like, that's like as simple as it gets. And then my friend who's a white male just gets that he's gay. It's like identity politics is like so embedded in like how like the angry white males react to you. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, we might think of ways that people are also more safe on the internet. You know, we talk about the sexualizing of teen girls and people worrying about, are they taking selfies or this or that? And, you know, what about the idea of screen-mediated sexuality as being particularly safe from, you know, physical harm, from partner abuse, you know, just, or health issues, STIs, or, I mean, you think there's anything to that? Is there some ways that the screen actually mitigates safety, makes one more safe?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, when you're young, you can experiment by sending selfies instead of, you know, fumbling around and getting pregnant, which is a plus. Well, what has, like, Snapchat done to try to deal with these issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that has to be a part of the conversation with each thing you're making. So you think of, okay, what is not just this ideal user, the user you have in your head, but try to think of people who are particularly socially vulnerable. You need to, at the very beginning, build in tools that allow you to block a report or to have functions where you say, no, like, I don't want random photos, and then something to do if you do get a photo that you didn't consent to receiving. And also the network is sort of built on the idea of the ephemerality as allowing a little bit more looseness or playfulness without so much heavy-handed repercussions. I mean, certainly people can screenshot and take photos and this and that. I don't think it's certainly not a secrecy network, but it is a little bit, I think, a little bit more playful and a little bit more loose instead of, we do have a culture, unfortunately, that, like you said, that, having a little digital dirt or skeletons in your Facebook history can be very debasing. And I think more ephemerality, or at least questioning this assumption that everything we do should be permanent, will help in that. I mean, I just would think of one example. There was I think it was like a 2006 election cycle, and there was two people running for the House of Representatives. There was the woman Crystal Ball.
Yeah.
And she had in her MySpace photos some college party from Halloween, and they weren't even that racy. I think she was wearing a costume, had a dildo for its nose.
Yeah.
And she became the most Googled person in the entire world. Her identity, her campaign, everything became about these photos. Everyone was looking at these photos. In the same election cycle, there was a guy from one of the first or second season of The Real World. And he was on The Real World just drunk and naked all the time. And everybody's like, oh, this is how's he gonna run for office? And he won just fine. Everyone was like, boys will be boys. You have wild times when you're young. So the idea of having this little bit of digital dirt in your past, that issue isn't evenly distributed, right? Right. That hurts in this situation is a clear example of how that hurts a woman more than it will hurt a man. Those scandalous photos came to define her in a way they couldn't for him. So really questioning this assumption of permanence is one half of it, and I think the other half is culturally, we need to stop being so terrified of somebody having some photos in their past. We need to erode that stigma because that stigma is so unevenly applied.
That's really interesting. You know, in that same election, Mark Foley, the Florida congressman, do you remember him?
I remember that.
He got busted for sending like sexy G-chats to young pages. That was like an incredible scandal because he was done in by this because it was the text. And you could go through it and read how he's trying to talk these kids into like giving them pictures or describing their sexual activities. It is fascinating that like pictures might be fading, but I don't think like if my G-chats got leaked, I would be like toast. Like I don't think that has changed.
Yeah, there's kind of this idea. I remember you brought up Gawker. They wrote a thing that was like, public is public. Like if you put something out there, then it's free use. Everybody can do anything they want, which, you know, kind of ironically bit them recently. They were like, what, our Slack conversations are being posted in public? Yeah. And it was like, oh my God. We do need to respect the context in which something is shared. As opposed to this kind of, oh, whatever gets posted, this is like, if it's out there, and everybody should be able to use it. So that really should be the focus right now when it comes to privacy and the internet, is respecting the context through which something was shared. You know, when somebody sends you something, do they intend for other people to see it? If not, you don't share it. That needs to be something that we collectively hammer home, teach people. Right, like when it's like schools have how the kids should use social media classes, and it's all just basically girls stop taking photos of yourself, and those classes need to be guys stop sharing photos, right. So I think that's part of our. Again, all these things that we're talking about aren't engineering solutions. These aren't like let's fix the coding.
Yeah, these are
like the way that we all like. This is our issue collectively, in addition to the companies who also have a responsibility.
Right. Social media just allows the collection of evidence of these behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay, I will read a question. Okay, who does anonymity benefit the most? Who loses?